An injury to one is an injury to all. An injury to one is an injury to all. Workers in, billionaires out.
Good evening, and thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Frances Wang. Labor leaders all across the Bay Area are raising concerns over the ongoing U.S. trade war, increased tariffs, and the impact that all of that is having on working Americans. The day started with a rally in Oakland and ended with more concern in San Francisco. ABC 7 News reporter Ansar Hassan has detailed.
They're trying to go around blaming transgender people, immigrants. That's not the problem.
At a midday rally at the Port of Oakland on Saturday, labor leaders from across the country joined together to raise concerns over President Trump's tariffs, ending the day with meetings in San Francisco.
This was the first rally in the United States by labor, working people, and community against the tariffs and trade war.
These labor organizers represent millions of working-class Americans, from healthcare to education to the transportation industry. They argue the tariffs have led to higher prices and layoffs.
They're paying for them at the gas pump. They're paying for it at the groceries. Housing is just outrageous now. It's not affordable.
On Wednesday, the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis released its latest figures. It shows the U.S. trade deficit fell by close to 24% in August, as Trump's global tariffs pushed imports lower. Some economists argue lower imports boost economic growth as more consumers buy domestic. But many labor groups see the tariffs as a tax.
And actually the pricing of these goods is being impacted, and the person that pays for it is the consumer. It's a tax. Shouldn't be called a tariff, it's a tax.
Economics professor Farhad Sabatan at Cal State East Bay says though reducing the trade imbalance is moving in the right direction, the results of Trump's tariffs are still ambiguous. And despite the president calling for some rollbacks, Sabatan says it's not clear if that alone can reduce inflationary pressure on prices.
Especially in California, because of course California is a very large state. We have seen the impact of the tariff on the prices of coffee, of steak. Coffee's price has basically gone up by more than 41%.
Activists want lawmakers to step in and do more.
Honestly, we seem to be serving the billionaire class and not the working class. What I'd like to see is Congress to take hold of its responsibility, which is they have the right to regulate tariffs, not one man in the White House.
In Oakland, Ansar Hassan, ABC 7 News.
My name is Steve Zeltzer. I'm a member of the Pacific Media Workers Guild freelance unit. Also, with Workweek, I produce a radio show called Workweek. We need a national labor channel in this country, actually, about what's going on in working people. Today, there's a rally in Washington, D.C., calling for impeachment of the president and his removal. And the sad fact of the situation is that our unions, all the unions, AFL-CIO, Teamsters, SEIU, need to be mobilizing in this country because we face a fascist threat. We face attacks on immigrants, we face union busting of federal workers, and also we face a trade war which is destroying this country and destroying the world. We're here in the Port of Oakland, and longshoremen have been affected by this, as well as Teamsters. There's less cargo, and also tourists are not coming to the United States. Teamster workers who work in hotels, service workers are all being affected. This is a working class issue. Trade war is an attack on all workers in this country and around the world. And who is it benefiting? Well, it's benefiting Trump and the billionaires because they're getting richer from this trade war. That's what's going on. Their trillions of dollars are going to support a trade war. So we're here today at the Port of Oakland to say that working people, the unions, have to oppose this trade war. We have to say that this trade war is hurting working people. It's not helping people, and it has to end. And also we're saying there should not be sanctions on Cuba. There should not be sanctions on Venezuela, on Iran. One of the reasons people from Venezuela and Cuba came to this country is because of the economic sanctions. They were driven here, they come to this country, and now they're being kicked out, blamed for this crisis. Many people come to this country because of the economic conditions, because of military dictatorships. And the military dictatorships have been supported by the United States. So we're saying here today, it's time to end this trade war. It's time to stop the attack on working people. It's time to unite all working people against this trade war to defend the people of the United States. This is actually the first rally that I know about in the United States against trade war. Amazing. The trade war has affected so many working people, and yet this is the first rally against trade war. Why is that? Again, it's a inaction by our unions. Our unions are not mobilizing the members. Our unions are not educating members. Millions of workers, whether they're union or not, are affected by trade war. We could bring these workers together. We should bring these workers together. And we need really a national general strike. Now, Sarah Nelson, who's the president of the airline flight attendants, has called for a general strike. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, has called for a general strike against the raids, ICE raids, terror raids, fascist raids against the immigrants in Chicago. We support that. The working people in this country need to mobilize. They need to defend themselves because they're going to suffer. We understand that the attack by ICE is not just on immigrants. It's going to be against union people. In fact, they're raiding workers' locations, factories, farms. When I saw that Trump called out the National Guard and was using helicopters, California National Guard helicopters, to chase farm workers off the fields in California. What the hell is going on? These are the people that do our work in California, the farm workers. They provide our food, and you're chasing them off the fields? That's an attack on all of us, not just the farm workers. We need rights for all working people in this country, including the immigrants who built this country. It's immigrants who built this country. That's who built this country, and yet we're attacking them with National Guard helicopters ordered by the President of the United States? It's scandalous, and it's part and parcel on the attack on working people. And we, unfortunately, in our unions, they close their eyes. And what it's called is business unionism. Let's just worry about our own little contract. Let's not worry about what's happened in the past. In fact, we just had a strike of 37,000 AFSCME members, and the other unions, the CNA and UPTCWA, we're not with them. We say that when you are not united, you're going to be defeated. We have to unite all workers at UC. The attack on UC workers, they're spending millions of dollars on union-busting lawyers to attack the workers. And who runs UC? The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, the Democratic Party, which have a supermajority in the legislature, they're running UC. And yet, have we heard a word about this union busting against the UC workers? Have we heard a word about the layoffs of UC workers at hospitals? My brother had to wait a day and a half at UCSF to get a bed for his condition. In the richest state in the country, the best hospital system in the world is being destroyed. You can't even get a bed. This is another reason we need single payer. We need a system for working people. And we can say now that people are waking up. People are fed up. People are angry. But the unions have to show the power that they have. The unions have to be speaking out to all working people. Amazon workers, all workers who are organizing. If you look at the situation that workers on 2 and 3 jobs, they can't survive. They can't take care of their families. And what does the trade war have to do with that? The trade war is causing inflation. The trade war is causing companies not to invest. And we're going to have some speakers here today talking about how trade war is affecting us. The ILWU is being affected by trade war. They're actually cutting jobs. Ships are not coming to California. And what's happening? Is it strengthening the United States? Hell no, because countries are trading with other countries. In fact, the export of China has gone up since the trade war started. What that means is other countries are trading with each other, and they're saying, screw the United States. We don't have to trade with the United States. We can make our own way. So basically what this trade war is doing is weakening the United States. It's weakening and hurting the people in this country. It has to stop. We have to organize, and the time is right because people are waking up. Workers have the power. In San Francisco in 1934, there was a general strike. And most workers do not know about that. The reason is the workers, the longshoremen, wanted a union hiring hall. In Minneapolis, there was a general strike in 1934. They called out the National Guard against it, and they won their strike, and it led to the way for organizing of Teamsters throughout the country. So we have a history in this country of working people standing up, fighting for each other, and I think that we have to continue this struggle. It's not going to go away. Trump is not going to go away, and fascism is not going to go away. The people that are behind Trump, the billionaires, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, they want complete power, and that's one of the lessons of fascism. In Germany, when the fascists took over, they put in directly the billionaires, the heads of these companies, and they ran the economy, and they had slave labor. That's what we're facing the danger of today. actually slave labor in this country. They're driving down the wages or conditions. I just talked with the brother here about what Trump has done with an executive order saying they want to bring in Mexican workers and so that they can lower the wages of the farm workers here. Is that helping working people in this country to bring in other workers, lower their wages, and then force down wages of farm workers in this country? It's the exact opposite. So this is what's going on. I think that we can say that people are waking up and the unions have the power, and we've got to stop this trade war, and this is an opportunity to do that. So our next speaker is going to be John Palmer, Vice President of the Teamsters Union, and he's going to be talking about why the Teamsters should be opposed to trade war. And I have to say, the Canadian Teamsters actually are opposed to the trade war. Why? Because this trade war is destroying Canada. It's literally destroying Canada. And the Teamsters in Canada are being wiped out and hurt. So why is it that the Teamsters Union leadership, Sean O'Brien, are supporting this trade war? Do they want to destroy workers in Canada? Internationalism means all workers uniting together against the billionaires, the companies who make profit. That's what we're saying. So welcome, John Palmer.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to everybody who came out here today to take part in this demonstration. Steve was very, very truthful and honest about what this is all about and how it's affecting every American in this country. Working men and women in this country have always depended on labor to be that voice, that unwavering voice of the working man, the working woman, and our families. What's happening today with the wholesale sort of selling out to Trump and his administration by our leadership in the Teamsters Union is that we've abandoned the principles and the core of the labor movement. Who is going to suffer across this is the working man, the working woman, the working poor in this country. Our history, our legacy is about supporting those that have less than us and encouraging those that have less of us to gain more and to wind up on an equal standing. For us to have Canadian Teamsters as part of our coalition of the Teamsters Union and to actually not say a word about the tariffs and the trade war against Canada because of some childish, petty thing that might have been posted during a baseball game is horrific. Let's get past the petty politics. Let's talk about what helps working men and working women in this country. Let's be for one another. This failure by leadership in the Teamsters and many other labor unions is despicable, it's deplorable, and it's got to change. It's time for us to unite as men, women of the labor movement and unite with those outside the labor movement. We're not a separate entity. Everybody out here that works for a living, and it may not be toiling in a field. It may not be working in a warehouse. It could be working in an air-conditioned office. It is labor. We're all labor. We all need to unify, and we need to understand that the working class and the ruling class are not the same. The ruling class does not give two hoots about whether you and your family are able to send your kids to college, whether you're able to buy a home. Right now, there's a reason that we had a change in New York City, and it's very, very simple. People can't afford to live, and adding more cost to this doesn't solve a damn thing. So it's time for us to unite, and it's time for us for those of you like Sean O'Brien who choose not to do what's right for people, it's time for you to pack your bags and go home.
Thank you, John. The ILWU here work in the ports. They move the cargo along with the truckers, and we have a rank and file ILWU member for Local 10, Joel Shore. So welcome, Joel Shore.
It's good to be out here with the Teamsters and other unions that may be here. I'm not only in the ILWU now for decades. I was a merchant seaman, longtime logistics, maritime worker in the Sailors Union of the Pacific. Worked on these ships coming in and out of here, Los Angeles, Seattle, other parts of the United States for many decades. With the trade war, whether we have tariffs or whether we don't, the point is it going to build up the working class? For many, many years, we railed against the WTO. We said we did not want free trade. But whether there's free trade or we have restrictions, the point is, how is it going to build up workers' power, the working class? And there's no plan for this right now. I mean, like Steve was saying, we have what is seeming to be a fascist type, I would say more a fascist type movement building up in the United States. Definitely a president that would probably try to implement something along the lines of fascism if they could get away with it in this country. There's a lot of complexities here in America that keep it from happening so fast. But that being said, the ship tax that they've talked about on ships that go into Chinese shipyards, and these could be even American registered ships. Every single ship in this port, I can guarantee you, even if it's an American ship, has been to a Chinese shipyard to do some kind of repairs or structural retrofitting. And to say that we're going to bring back the American shipyard industry to the extent that it could actually provide jobs for people is just ludicrous. Because we are so many decades behind Korea and these other countries in that industry, there's no way, that we could bring that back, sort of some kind of long-term program that would mean investing in infrastructure, which is something they don't want to do. Neither the Democrats or Republicans want to invest in the infrastructure that would be necessary in the first place to bring back the shipbuilding industry, let alone in a sustainable way, where it wouldn't be as toxic and whatnot to the people living around here. So that being said, yes, we need an alternative to the Democrats and Republicans. People need to get involved in this, and we've got to stop blaming the boogeyman. They're trying to go around blaming transgender people, immigrants. That's not the problem. We need to look at these problems square in the face. Automation, tariffs, these things that are threatening our jobs. It's not some kind of whack ass thing people are talking about on social media, or fuck that. We need to look at each other straight in the face with these problems scientifically and see what the problem is. It's not something that maybe somebody's making you afraid of because you think it's different. So that's all I'm going to say.
Today, there's a rally in Washington, I was saying earlier, of thousands of people protesting Trump, protesting the rise of fascism, the attack on women, the attack on blacks, the attack on browns, the attack on immigrants. And what we're saying here is we have to expand that. There should be 500,000, 1 million workers in Washington. That's what our unions can do. We have to unite the working class in this country because these people who are running this government are fascist. They believe in fascism. These techno-fascists who run these companies do not want workers. That's why there's spending billions of dollars on AI, and the reason is to get rid of workers. That's their whole idea. Get rid of medical workers, get rid of teachers, get rid of all kinds of workers. So what we're saying is, what purpose is it for us in this country to get rid of workers? We need workers. We need healthcare. We need more healthcare workers. We need more teachers. We need more public service workers to make this a great country. And actually, this attack on workers and the billionaires, and they want deregulation. That's another issue. They want to deregulate so there's no protections. They want to destroy, and they have destroyed OSHA. They want to destroy the NLRB. They don't want workers the right to organize. This is what we're facing today, and what we have to say is we have to start standing up, we have to start organizing, and we have to say enough is enough. Barry Anderson. And Barry Anderson is a member of IBT 856. Welcome, Barry.
I don't have much to say, but thank you guys for allowing me to come up. Again, my name is Barry Anderson. I'm out of Sacramento, California. I'm a member of the IBT local Teamsters 856. I'm also a rap artist and an activist. I go by Apostle B.A. Abad, and my content and my music is based on class struggle and critiquing society, how we can come with better solutions for the working class and for the poor. I'm a worker. I'm part of the proletariat as well, and just me, a simple factory worker. Prior to the tariffs and the trade war, overtime was good. Ever since it's taken effect, overtime has been cut. And we're down to just 40 hours a week. And a lot of us where I work at and other places in the town where I live at, we're barely making it. Inflation is high. Food at the gas station, Well, the gas station, gas is high, of course. It's California, of course, $5 a gallon, that's crazy. Food at the grocery store definitely used to go a long way between me and my daughter. Now I'm spending $300 to $50 to $400 just for me and my daughter. And possibly even more now with what's going on with hours being cut and the trade war taking big effects in the tariffs. But I'd like to thank you guys for allowing me to come and speak. I'm not big on speeches, but thank you.
Our next speaker is Mariana Batista, and she's a healthcare worker at the University of California in Davis. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Mariana Batista. I work at UC Davis Medical Center, where a lot of myself and coworkers are dealing with struggling, barely making it. We're living paycheck to paycheck. With the tariffs, our cost of living has increased by food, by gas. It's been a struggle. It's been a struggle when you have the people that are responsible or running the whole system who are using the opportunity from, I would say, Washington, D.C. to use as an advantage to bring harm upon the workers by allowing them to work on skeleton crews, working in a trauma level 1 hospital, and you barely have enough workers, and they're asking you to do numbers. It's not okay. You put your patients, you put your workers in harm's way. And now they're talking about our healthcare system, where they want to take the cap off of our healthcare. We're already struggling. Every time we get a raise, they find a way to take that raise back by raising something else. It's just a way of them using what's happening in our capital of our country for them to use that against us. And it's not just the university, it's in a lot of the other people that are workers that are represented. Their employers are also doing the same thing. They're taking an advantage to deplete the working people, put us in positions that we are desperate. That's not the way labor's supposed to be. It's not the way that this country should be. We're in the United States of America, yet it's starting to look like a third world country. What is happening? There's too many people allowing this to happen that's in leadership positions. We've gotten too complacent. And now it's time for accountability and transparency. Transparency meaning that let's stand up and let's fight for what's right. The stronger we are is when we all come together. That's where we find our strength. Let's educate our brothers and our sisters, and let's keep this fight alive. You know why? Because it's our children and our children's children and their children that we're fighting for today. I'm worried about how my grandchild, what he's going to face in about 10, 15 years. It's time to start thinking about the then and the there and not the here and the now. Things are happening. And if you stand by and allow that to happen, then you don't have an excuse to complain. Let's stand up for what we believe in, and that's the rights for all people. Health care, affordable wages, a great home to live in, food in our stomachs, and clothes on our backs. Those are the fundamental things to life. And those are the fundamental things that are being taken away slowly. Wake up, America. Wake up.
This rally today is not just people in the Bay Area, but we have a sister here from UCLA in Los Angeles. And I want to say to our brothers and sisters in Los Angeles, we feel for you. We feel for you about the militarization of the city. about the fact that people are being terrorized in Los Angeles. And our money, they passed $170 billion. What for? Not for health care, not for housing, not for education, to round up people in this country, to round up workers in this country. We have to stop that, and we have to defend all workers, including our immigrant workers who helped build this country.
This is Laura Newman. I'm with the Local 2010. I work for UCLA. I work in the Ronald Reagan Hospital, and we're definitely seeing the cuts being made to our jobs and how it's affecting the health care, how it's affecting the taxpayers. The taxpayers are putting in some of the money to UCLA and for this hospital. And when we're not taking care of the equipment, and we're not taking care of the people, everything is suffering. We're definitely seeing it from our end. We're starting to see it at the grocery store. They have the self-checkout as opposed to the clerk. We're starting to see it in the hardware stores, the same thing, the self-checkout. Now we have the Waymo taxis, the driverless taxis at UCLA. People are going to continue to keep losing their jobs and keep losing their jobs. One of my biggest personal fears is I think that we're entering a time period where this country and the people in power have to decide what's important to them, because the AI technology, with its ability to take over the jobs, what happens? What happens from that point? You know, the history of this world, the powerful and the rich, they use slave labor to maintain their power and to maintain their wealth. As the world grew up, people got smarter. They realized that slavery was wrong. But then we had Reverend Lawson who termed the phrase plantation capitalism, and basically we're all still slaves. We just get to choose our master. But now the master doesn't need slaves. So what happens? You know, what kind of threat do we have at humanity at this point in time? Because this labor movement is becoming more of a humanity movement. Are we going to get rid of capitalism and become a communist country to save humanity because no one has the ability to work? Or are we going to try to preserve work for workers and preserve humanity? To the folks that are in power and that hold the wealth, what good is it if we lose our people?
Thank you. And as we said, this issue of AI, they would like to use AI and robotics to get rid of all the workers in this port. In fact, that's one of the demands. And if you go to China, the ports in China are automated. They don't need, and Los Angeles too. So automation and AI is an issue for all working people. And our unions are not taking this up. AI and robotics should be run by working people, not by these billionaires who only want to use it to get rid of workers. That's what they're about. One aspect of the trade war that we do not talk about in the United States, it's how it's affecting other countries. Canada's economy is being destroyed. Mexico is threatened, but also countries like in South Africa and Namibia are being affected. And Lithuania, a small country, has been wiped out. Those workers have very little, and this trade war is harming them, is destroying their livelihoods. And so therefore, it's an international issue, it's not an American issue. And the workers, the ILWU workers in San Francisco have played a leading role in building internationalism. They supported a boycott of cargo from South Africa, which helped end apartheid. They supported stopping shipments of the Zim line, the Israeli line, in this port. They stopped them. They were blocking. The workers would not cross a picket line, and the Zim ship no longer go on the West Coast. It's because of worker action. This is what we say is a solution to our problems. Workers have to use their power, as they do in Italy, where there's going to be a general strike on November the 28th, against money for military and money for militarization, and also stopping the war in Gaza, the genocide. And in the United States, what can they say? We're spending trillions of dollars for war. That's the budget that goes up. The war budget is going up. At the same time, they don't have money for health care. They're throwing millions of people off of health care. They don't have money for people who are hungry, who need food. This is a crime. This is a crime against working people. So our next speaker is going to be Clarence Thomas. He's was a retired Secretary-Treasurer of ILWU Local 10, and he's an internationalist. He has been to South Africa. He's been around the world. In fact, he even went to Iraq to stop the war in Iraq. What did that get us? The war in Iraq. We spent trillions of dollars on that war. It's hurt the people of Iraq. It's hurt the people of this country. So welcome, Clarence Thomas.
Sisters and brothers, siblings and comrades, I'm very glad to be with you today. Earlier in the morning, I was part of a webinar with an international group of Palestinian activists, and we were discussing the various successful efforts to stop the logistic dimensions of companies like Maersk Line, which is one of our employers here at the port. They've been carrying Israeli cargo, and they've been targeted. And as a result of that, they have not been able to go to certain ports in Israel. It's befitting that we're here where for over 30 years I've made my living. I'm a third-generation longshore worker. My grandfather started here on the waterfront in 1944, my dad in 1963, and my great-uncle in 1965, and I started in 1985. Just let me say this to you about this union and its impact. It has been one of the most radical, one of the most democratic, one of the most racially integrated unions in the United States of America. And to show you its impact of how it has influenced the lives of people like me and others that you are familiar with, let me just throw out a few names. Brother Ron Dellums, former radical member of Congress who represented residents in Berkeley and Oakland, graduated from the same high school that I did, Oakland Technical High School, in the early 1950s. He was the one who introduced legislation concerning sanctions on South Africa. Brother Leo Robinson, who introduced the first resolution after watching the impact on television of the Soweto uprising and murder of young people who were fighting against learning the African language. He also attended the same high school that I did, Oakland Tech, and that might be a coincidence. All three of us attended the same high school. But more importantly, all three of us had fathers who were members of ILWU Local 10. And that influenced all of us in terms of what kind of a household we grew up in, understanding the importance of being in a union. My grandfather and dad used to take me to the union hall and to union meetings. I've been around longshoremen all of my life. And I mention this because it is important to understand the historical relevance to this institution and how it has impacted members of the Black and white, Latinx, and other communities here in the Bay Area. It has been a bedrock for what some people call movement into the middle class. What I'd like to say is the ascendancy of the working man and woman to be able to have a living and income that allows them to be able to afford to send their children to college, to be able to provide health care for their children and families, the kinds of things that are so essential that we are seeing are being under attack. It's important for me to mention that. On the question of tariffs, the ILWU has come out and made a very strong statement against tariffs. I'm not going to read that to you. Much of that has already been covered. We know that tariffs are a tax. We know that the impact of tariffs on working people and what it has meant. But what I'd like to do is to talk about how tariffs ties in to U.S. imperialism and how that impacts workers in other countries in the same way that we are being impacted here in the United States of America. We need to understand that these tariffs that are in place are used for the benefit of creating an environment for working people to demonize the other. In other words, people think that the Chinese are paying the tariffs, or that some other country, Venezuela, is paying the tariffs. No, it is the American working people who are paying the tariffs. But in this false analysis, what it does is to create an animosity toward other working people, because Americans are taught to not look at the real enemy, which is the ruling class, which is the merchants of death that are benefiting from the proceeds that go into these various kinds of weapons of death that are being used in Gaza. We see them now at the ready in the Caribbean towards Venezuela and Colombia. Trump has talking about having a sweet but vicious attack on Nigeria. And so we understand why he's saying these things, because Trump doesn't filter. Whatever is in his mind, he just lets it out. But he wants the oil in Nigeria. They want the oil in Venezuela. So how does all of this figure in with the tariffs? Well, if the American people are thinking that these various countries are responsible for these prices being increased, you hate those countries. Therefore, you hate the same people who are facing the same problems that you are in this country. And so it's important for us to look beyond the corporate media. And let me just say this as far as the Democratic Party is concerned. We cannot rely on bourgeois democracy to challenge the system that exploits and oppresses us. Yes, the contradictions have become so stark now that you have members of Congress and the Senate who are calling out members of the military to tell them you don't have to follow orders in the military that violate the Constitution. That should tell us something, sisters and brothers, about what time it is. Comrade Steve Zeltser made reference to some of the glorious and historical achievements and mobilizing efforts of the ILWU of the past. He made reference to Iraq. He made reference to us shutting down all 29 ports in 2008, opposing the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, the first time that a union has ever taken a strike action not for benefits or higher wages, but to oppose U.S. foreign policy. But what you may not know is that that resolution did not come from the top of the ILWU. That resolution came from the rank and file. It started with rank and filers in Local 10. The 1984 action to refuse to unload South African cargo for 11 days. That resolution started with Brother Howard Kaler, a white comrade, a communist, who introduced that resolution to boycott the Ned Lloyd Kimberly. And it was Brother Leo Robinson, an African-American communist and Pan-Africanist, who amended the resolution to only boycott the South African cargo and not the ship. And in doing so, that lets the world know, hey, we don't have a quarrel with Australia. We don't have a quarrel with the other importers here. Our quarrel is with South Africa. But that happened because of the rank and file, not the people at the top. You have to understand that. And I'm mentioning this because those of you that are here need to understand, when we start talking about a general strike, you got to start with resolutions in your own local. Those of you that are in locals that have democratic traditions that allow resolutions to be put forward. Maybe every union doesn't allow that, but it does happen in our own union. And I want to be very clear about something. In 2024, ILWU Local 10 put forward a resolution calling for all 29 ports on the West Coast not to work military cargo going to Israel. Now, you have to understand that the Block the Boat action, which started here at the Port of Oakland, was very effective. And it impacted other ports because, believe it or not, there were Block the Boat actions that took place in LA, Block the Boat actions that took place in the Pacific Northwest. Now, they weren't as effective and dramatic as those that took place in Oakland, but they did take place. 2024 at the ILWU International Convention, that resolution, I'm sorry to say, was voted down. We have to be clear about something. The ILWU is a democratic union. So when you are a democratic union, you got to live with the results of what the rank and file decides, or at least what the representatives, so-called representatives of the rank and file decide. And unfortunately, we don't have the same political and social consciousness amongst the majority or significant number of our rank and filers as we once did. To show you that all is not dead, I'm a member of the Pacific Coast Pensioners Association. That's the group of longshore workers or ILWU members that have retired but are still active. And I'm happy to say we have a modest budget, but we put forward a motion, and it passed unanimously, to donate a significant number of dollars to the World Kitchen to be used to feed Palestinian men, women, and children. It's important to note that the people who spoke in favor of that resolution were some of the same people who were on the front line of the anti-apartheid struggle. People like Bill Proctor, a white longshoreman who was raised by a black communist father in Berkeley, and others who were active in the ILWU and operated and functioned to support that activity. These are the people that spoke in favor of the resolution, such as myself. I came in after the anti-apartheid struggle in 1985. However, knowing the history and being mentored by people like Leo Robinson, and having been a part of making sure that rank and filers understand the connection between the anti-apartheid struggle and the struggle for self-determination for the Palestinians. So we need to not lie. Don't tell any lies. Don't claim any easy victory. We got to tell the truth. I'm very disappointed about what happened in the ILWU. Right now, we're working on a campaign. I think it's probably been spoken about. We've learned that the Port of Oakland airport has been sending millions of dollars of military equipment to Israel. We're just now finding that out. There's a wonderful alliance of groups, trade unions, progressive organizations, active Palestinian youth movement individuals, and others who have been appealing to the port. We now have an ILWU member, by the way, on the port now. His name is Derek Muhammad from Local 34. This issue now is really going to be in the hands of our mayor, Barbara Lee, to see what she does. She's in a very difficult position right now. The port needs money. Many of you may be aware of the fact that Local 10 played a very important role in working with various community and environmental groups to stop coal here at the port. It's important to talk about all of these things so that we get a more comprehensive picture of what we're dealing with here. I'm going to close it out by saying this. People need to understand you can't rely on Block the Boat and Local 10 to carry all the weight. You see that now. It's going to be necessary for people in their organizations that they represent. And let me just say this. If you're not a trade unionist, you belong to a church, you can move with the issue of divestment, making sure that your dollars that you put into a bank, that bank is not doing business with any elements of the Israeli government or something that has to do with the oppression of people in Gaza or the occupied territories. The same thing can be said of municipalities. I'm talking about building the kind of movement that we saw in the 70s and the 80s. Boycott, sanctions, divestment. That's what it's going to take in order to build a movement, which includes a movement to build for a strike. All of these things are connected. They all are. They're not separate and apart. And that's why the No Kings mobilizations have been so effective, because they understand the importance of everybody who wants to be involved to participate. We need to be very clear right now. Those of us who are on the hard left need to be able to take some lessons from what the old timers learned with regard to building a united front. It's going to be necessary to do that at this particular time. It doesn't mean that you're compromising your principles. But what it does mean, in order to get to where we have to go, we have to bring the people along with us. Everybody understand that? That's what we got to do. There is no magic to this at all. It takes work. And I want to acknowledge the organizers of this event today, Comrade Steve Zeltzer, who has played such an important role in documenting our history through videotaping. It's so important for young people to be able to see and learn. And I just wanted to acknowledge him and Cosme and the others who have put this thing together today. But that's about all that I want to say right now. I could say more, but let me stop right there and say we got work to do, sisters and brothers, comrades. We got a lot of work to do. Don't be discouraged, but we got to get busy. All power to the people. An injury to one is an injury to all. Thank you.
Actually, Clarence and I go back a ways. We were in the San Francisco state strike, actually, in 1968. And that strike was against the racist conditions at the university. Black, brown couldn't go to the university. It was for open admissions, and it was for teaching about the history of this country, which is what they call, they don't want wokeism. What is wokeism? Teaching about how this country was built, teaching about slavery. They don't want to talk about the Civil War. They don't want to talk about slavery. They want to go back to slavery. In fact, they're attacking South Africa. They say they're committing genocide in South Africa against the whites. In fact, now the United States is only allowing whites to come here from South Africa. That's the mentality, the racist mentality they have. And that's something we have to organize against, because our brothers and sisters in South Africa, in Venezuela, in all over the world, we are in unity with them against this trade war. We're in unity against the billionaires who really want to destroy us all. So our next speaker is with General Strike USA, Antonio, and he's come and supported him. And we need to talk about this issue of a general strike, because that's the power to get single payer. And I wanted to say we need to get the kind of health care that they have in Canada, national health care. And on January 31st, there's going to be rallies around the country demanding single payer. We need a general strike on January 31st. Let's not wait for the Congress, which we can't count on. If everyone goes out on January 31st saying we need single payer, get the insurance companies, the pharmacy companies, the hospitals out of it, let working people get health care for all. That's the kind of action we need. So welcome, Antonio.
Thanks for having me. We've all discussed all of the ways in which this country is failing us and the world. We are the bully of the world currently, and we have been the bully of the world for since the dawn of time, I believe. And, you know, the general strike is, I believe, our last option in terms of doing something that is not outright war. And I think that's where we've been pushed, is this last-ditch effort to, you know, hold on to our humanity still. And the position of our organization, which has just crossed 400,000 signees across the nation, we're actually having a webinar right now that I can't be a part of in collaboration with PSL. They have been an instrumental party that has been organizing most of the protests that you've seen surrounding the genocide in Gaza, along with PYM, who is also doing this campaign with union organizers and other, you know, organizations about this Oakland embargo in the airports. And so our position is that the rank and file is going to be the necessary group of people that are going to bring about change. We cannot rely on the Democrats or any other political party. It has to come from us. And if you are a part of any special interest group, whether it is a trade union or a tenant union, or you are a tenant in general, if you have housing where there is a landlord over you, if you are in a church, if you are in some kind of organization, if you are doing mutual aid, it is important that we all band together and we use the general strike program and our forum in order to connect these organizations together and to create a united front against all the oppression happening in the world today. So I would like to invite everyone to not join this organization, but join a coalition or council based on your special interest, based on what you do. No matter what you do, what actions you take, you are important and instrumental in stopping the oppression of the world. We just had the Navy go into Mexico recently. I don't know if it was this past weekend or last week, but they stopped on the coast of a Mexican beach and they planted signs saying restricted access, this is now property of the US government. And they were arresting Mexicans on this beach if they were taking pictures or coming close to it. Eventually the Mexican Navy then responded with their boats and warships. I don't think there was any conflict, but clearly the American troops got spooked and they left. They took the signs out and they claimed that it was an issue of topography in the ocean. There was some weird stuff going on, but clearly this was an act of aggression against Mexico and testing the waters for the expansion of the American government and the American state into Mexico. This is not a new, tactic. This is a tactic that is being used currently in Palestine. And if we don't want to see a U.S. invasion in Mexico or any other country that we think we deserve their land, or it's maybe divinely instituted to us, then we need to take action. We cannot wait on any political party, and organizing through the general strike program I think is the best way for us to get connected, because it is very general. It is mutual aid organizations, tenant organizations, trade unions, councils, committees, teachers, doctors, whatever you are important, and we need you. And I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Our next speaker is Valley, and she is with the Green Party in San Francisco.
Hi everybody, my name is Valley Elza O'Keefe, and I am a county council member of the San Francisco Green Party. I actually want to kind of give a different perspective. I think we've been hearing from a lot of people that are part of, trade unions, and, healthcare workers are part of the Teamsters. Thank you so much for everything that you've contributed to this rally. But I am a member of Gen Z. I am 26 years old, and like many people in my generation in our 20s, early 30s, we've never really had the opportunity to join unions. The labor movement, as we all know, is significantly weakened, and the jobs that are available have intentionally been depoliticized. Unions have been kicked out. Unions have been weakened through a variety of legal maneuvers. And unfortunately, a lot of people in my age range have never had the opportunity to do so. I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and both my parents were members of the Culinary Workers United. But even though we were technically a union household, they were actually very anti-union. And I think this reflects the attitude of a lot of people in the American public, which is, they're part of a union, they complain about the dues, they complain about their leadership, but they don't tend to get involved, they don't tend to run for leadership. And what I think a lot of people don't appreciate is that unions, like any other institution, like our own governments at the local, state, and federal levels, they require care, they require maintenance, they require active participation and involvement. And so, my parents always had these criticisms about the union, the fact that they had to pay these dues, but they claim that the union never did anything for them. And I think, unfortunately, that kind of reflects what the American public thinks now about unions, that they're just there to steal your dues and to add a layer of complication between you and the employer and to restrict, the potential for raises, the potential for promotions, not understanding everything that unions have done to protect the working class, the fact that we wouldn't have things like a weekend or an 8-hour workday or child labor laws or minimum wage if it wasn't for everything that unions did, especially in the early 20th century. And from my perspective, so I actually work in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, and that has been an industry that has been really, really harmed by everything that's been going on under this administration, specifically the tariffs. And if you're not aware, pharmaceuticals and biotechnology is a very global industry. We rely on manufacturing from China. We rely on research collaboration and manufacturing in Europe. So the second that these tariffs are introduced, it introduced volatility to an industry that already was a really, really volatile industry. If you don't know, drug development in this country is essentially a gambling game for venture capitalists. And being a scientist is actually not the stable career that it used to be in the 50s and the 60s. Now, if you're a scientist, you can expect to get laid off every couple of years. Scientists don't have unions. They have been depoliticized to the point where we're told not to try to start unions, and they're not interested in joining unions in their workplace. And despite the fact that I, as a 20-something, did what I was supposed to, going to college, getting a degree in science, or STEM, which is so valued in this country because of the military-industrial complex, and going into a career to get a stable lifestyle, that's been denied to me. I've only been in the industry 3 years after graduating with a degree in material science and engineering, and I've been laid off twice. I have been unemployed for 8 months now, and I've been desperately looking for my next role in the industry with the education and experience that I have. And the unfortunate reality is, I know it isn't because there's something wrong with me as an individual. What it reflects is it reflects the state of the system. It reflects the state of our economy, which has been completely given to venture capitalists that just want to gamble and enrich themselves and leave the working class behind. And it's honestly kind of a miracle coming from such an anti-union background and kind of, drinking a lot of the propaganda, or the Kool-Aid, I should say, that I've kind of made it to this point where I'm a socialist and now I'm a member of the San Francisco Green Party. But I think what it shows is that so many people in my age group, I was 17 years old when Trump was elected. I experienced a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. I experienced the largest protest movement in the United States with Black Lives Matter. And I think it just shows that people in my age group are extremely radicalized right now, and we've been forced to contend with a system that is increasingly broken, increasingly corrupt, and it really leaves no other option to either be radicalized, you're either radicalized to the left or to the right. And I think fortunately what I've been seeing is that more and more people in my age group have been radicalized to the left, being in groups like General Strike US, joining groups like DSA and PSL. Young people were a key part of Mamdani's victory in New York City. But what I'll say as a member of the Green Party is that we can't rely on the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, to deliver us from this mess. A lot of people want to point to Trump as being this unique aberration, and because he's uniquely a bad guy, uniquely a con man, that if we just get him out, then we're going to solve all of our problems. But I think, as we all know, these problems are deep-rooted. Trump is a representation of the corruption that both parties have engaged in for a very, very long time. And we need to build independent politics. We need a workers' party. I really think the Green Party can be that party. We have ballot lines in almost all 50 states. But either way, I am supportive of anyone that wants to run outside of the Democratic and Republican parties. And I think we need to not only empower people to start unions in their workplaces and to take up union leadership, for example, like supporting someone like Richard Hooker and John Palmer and the Teamsters with the Fearless Slate, but we also need to be supporting people like Butch Ware for governor of California, who's running with the Green Party, because only independent politics are going to get us out of this mess. We can't continue to invest in parties like the Democrats and the Republicans that have been bought out by corporations and billionaires for decades now and have created the unique situation that we're in. So I just want to say thank you so much to Steve Zeltzer and United Front Committee for Labor Party for putting this on. And I really, really hope that with our continued participation that we can start to improve things for workers.
Stop killing workers.
Workers in, billionaires out.
Workers in, billionaires